Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be talking about all of the Christmas movies that I watched for this month. So here we are, wrapping up December. Moved very fast for me, and we'll be heading into a new year. And this is probably going to be the last video I'm going to be doing for this month. I would like to try to do one more. We'll see if I'll have enough time to do that. But you know, I watched quite a few Christmas movies this month that I didn't cover. The ones I did cover were films like Batman Returns, Die Hard 2, The Long Kiss Goodnight, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. For anyone out there who hasn't seen those videos, I'll link them in the description below so you can check them out. But I watched a lot of other Christmas movies that I didn't get a chance to do a solo video on. So I was like, you know what? How about I just do a solo video and I'll just talk about all of the Christmas movies that I haven't covered yet that I watched this month, and just put it in one video. So that's what this is. So I'm not going to talk about the movies that I've already done videos on for this month. I'm going to talk about the ones that I haven't talked about in the order that I watched them, according to the way I logged them into my Letterboxd diary. So with all that being said, let's start with the original Miracle on 34th Street. Miracle on 34th Street, the one from 1947, is a film that I have a soft spot for. It's one of the few traditional Christmas movies that I really, really enjoy. I remember watching this movie when I was very young one Christmas, I think at my grandma's house, and it was just on TV in the background. And I got so sucked into it as a little kid, and I was convinced that this man who was claiming to be Kris Kringle was actually Santa Claus. I was convinced of it. And you know what? Watching the movie all these years later, I still believe he's Santa Claus. It's a lovely movie that balances holiday charm and cheer with a little bit of the genuine criticism of the commercialism of Christmas. And I always appreciate when Christmas movies highlight that aspect of the holiday. It's something that's always bothered me. Fun little fact about me, I used to do mall security. That's right. And I worked 2 Black Fridays in my lifetime. And let's just say it really put my faith to the test of how I feel about humanity. It has made me kind of bitter towards this holiday season. And one of the reasons I love Miracle on 34th Street is that it talks about that a little bit. It talks about how businesses have kind of co-opted the holiday of Christmas and turned it into a sleazy, profitable commercialism nightmare. And this movie criticizes that, and it tries to remind viewers of what the spirit of Christmas is really about. And then the other best aspect about this movie is that the film never outright tells the viewer whether or not this man who is claiming to be Kris Kringle is Kris Kringle for real. It is left somewhat to interpretation. And I really appreciated that. And I appreciated that aspect even more after watching the remake of Miracle on 34th Street. A film that was co-written by John Hughes, which I did not know that. It was my first time watching the remake. I didn't really like it. I don't think it comes anywhere near the original in terms of quality, in terms of the emotional aspects of it. It just, at its best, it's basically just doing some of the same stuff that the first movie did, but to not as great of an effect. And at its worst, it changes aspects of the original movie that make it less impactful on an emotional level. The biggest example of this is the ending where, on the back of the dollar bill, it says, "In God We Trust." And apparently that convinces the judge that, yes, Santa Claus can be real. And it's like, what? No, don't like that. In the original movie, he has all of these letters that are written to Kris Kringle, and there's a possibility that that could actually work in the court of law. There's a sense of realism there a little bit, where it's like, okay, that actually makes sense, and it's more dramatic for the movie. Where in A Miracle on 34th Street, that whole dollar aspect was so dumb and so cheesy. The movie also felt a lot longer than it needed to be. It felt bloated, and I know some people really like this movie. They prefer it over the original. Not me. I think it kind of sucked, and I'm not a fan of it. So the original Miracle on 34th Street is the superior film by far. End of story. After that, I watched a movie that, this is probably going to surprise a lot of people, that I had never seen before either, and that is Nightmare Before Christmas, a movie that was not directed by Tim Burton, which that was surprising because his name and his style is all over the film. The movie, he came up with the premise of the movie based on a poem that he had written, and they turned that into a musical stop motion animation film. I really liked it. I think a big reason why I liked it is because I'm a fan of Tim Burton. I'm a fan of Tim Burton's earlier stuff. I'm a big fan of Danny Elfman's music, and that goes a long way for me to really enjoy the movie. I'm not a big musical guy, but the music in Nightmare Before Christmas is wonderful. The visuals of the movie are outstanding. Still one of the best looking stop motion animation movies I've seen. It looks amazing in high definition, which is how I watched it. If I had a nitpick about the movie, it's that there's not that much of a story, and there's even less of like a character development for Jack Skellington. The movie leaves a lot to be desired in that aspect, but I think its visual presentation, its music, and its wonderful macabre humor with holiday charm, it goes a long way for the film to kind of go over those shortcomings for me. So it's not a perfect movie. I do wish it had a little bit more depth emotionally, would have been nice. But I loved the music. I loved the visuals. I just loved the overall style. I love the fact that the movie was really short. I think this movie is like under 80 minutes, minus credits. Very short movie, very fun movie. I definitely can see myself returning to this one. I had a lot of fun. Okay, so the next movie I watched was a movie that I remember watching once when I was really young, didn't really think much of it, and for whatever reason I decided to rewatch it like a decade plus later, and that is Christmas with the Kranks. This movie is terrible. This movie is so bad. It's, you know what, it's a movie where it's like, I like the premise of it. I compare it to Jingle All the Way in that sense, where it's like, I like the idea behind this movie. It would work if the film was kind of a satire on the insanity of Christmas and how people take it too seriously, and how some people want to take a break from that insanity, and, you know, mentioning the cult-like behavior about how some people in some neighborhoods put Christmas on a pedestal and make other people uncomfortable with that fact. That I think there should be more Christmas movie satires anyway. I think the holiday deserves some good movies that kind of criticize the more disturbing elements of it. This movie does that, but it does it unintentionally. And it eventually sells out in the last act where it's like, no, Christmas is great. You can't skip it. The idea of skipping Christmas or wanting to take a break from Christmas is a terrible idea. You're an idiot. I wrote a short review of this movie on Letterboxd. Let me just read that real quick. So Christmas with the Kranks is saying, if you choose to take a break from Christmas, then you're a selfish piece of shit who deserves to be savagely ridiculed and violently harassed until you're forced to conform with the superficial traditions of the holiday season, because that's what Christmas is really all about. This is a bad movie. Yeah, so the Kranks, mainly Tim Allen's character, you know, his daughter's leaving, and he wants to save money because they ended up spending like $6,000+ for Christmas last year. And he has the idea of like, how about me and you, since our daughter's not gonna be home from Christmas, let's go to the Caribbean. Let's take a cruise and we'll save money doing it. And it's like, why wouldn't you want to do that? That sounds like a great idea. But instead, the family gets shamed by the neighborhood, harassed by the neighborhood, stalked by the neighborhood, in order for them to be forced to stay and celebrate Christmas against their will. And then at the end of the movie, or towards the end of the movie, Jamie Lee Curtis is like, no, this is dumb. Christmas is great. Our daughter's coming home. Screw you. You're a selfish piece of shit, Tim Allen, for wanting to save money and take a break from Christmas. Fuck you. It's like, dude, everybody in this movie, except for Tim Allen, is a terrible person. And it was infuriating to watch. And what was crazier to me while watching the movie, I was like, who wrote this fucking movie? I want names. Who wrote this piece of shit? This movie was written by Chris Columbus. For those who may not know, Chris Columbus is most famous for the next two movies that I'll be talking about, directing Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2. He wrote the script for Goonies and, I don't know if you can see this, Gremlins. He wrote this movie. He also directed the first 2 Harry Potter movies. So it's like, he's clearly a competent filmmaker. He's clearly a good writer. What happened? What happened? Christmas with the Kranks is appalling. Fuck that movie. And now we'll talk about 2 better movies. So, like a lot of kids of my generation, I was born in 95, but I grew up laughing my ass off to the first 2 Home Alone movies. As I've gotten older, the first Home Alone still works really well for me. I still love the last 20 minutes. Nothing makes me laugh harder than seeing Joe Pesci getting shot in the dick with the BB gun. Or the scene where Marv is screaming bloody murder when he gets a tarantula on his face. But the emotional aspect of the movie between Kevin and the old man actually works really well. And it didn't feel as forced as I thought it was going to be on a rewatch, because I hadn't seen it in a while. And I was like, no, the emotional relationship between the old man actually really works, and it doesn't feel forced. It feels quite genuine. And then on top of that, you get some great slapstick, insane, borderline sadistic humor at the last act of the movie, which is wonderful. And it's just a great concept for a film that just works. It's a fun idea that John Hughes came up with, and I really, really enjoy it. And then I watched Home Alone 2, and I hadn't seen Home Alone 2 in particular in a long time. I know there's a lot of people out there that say Home Alone 2 is even better than Home Alone 1. One of my favorite YouTube channels is called Hats Off Entertainment. He is a great YouTuber who talks about lesser known movies, and he'll talk about things that have been forgotten, like movies that inspired TV shows that lasted for less than a season. Great YouTuber, great research. He did a video recently talking about Home Alone 2. In the opening of the video, he talks about why he thinks Home Alone 2 is better than Home Alone 1. At first he says he doesn't agree with people who say that Home Alone 2 is the same movie as Home Alone 1.
Every time I hear someone make the argument that Home Alone 2 is just a copy of the first movie, I feel compelled to say,
I'm terribly sorry, sir, but I'm afraid you're mistaken.
My response is, yes, it is. It is Home Alone 1 again, but this time in New York. It is the same movie. And his arguments for why Home Alone 2 is better than Home Alone 1, in my opinion, is not very convincing.
The booby traps are more explosive, the locations are more extravagant, and the cast gives us even more to love about their performances.
Home Alone 2 is the quintessential example of a sequel repeating the first movie again, but this time with a twist. And that twist is, it's in New York. And if you don't believe that Home Alone 2 is the same movie as Home Alone 1 again, enjoy this little 2-minute montage that I put together. It's the same. I'm sorry. And because of that, it's not as good. I would argue because the traps are so much more cartoonish in Home Alone 2, they're not as funny as the ones in Home Alone 1. In fact, I think the grounded aspect of the slapstick sequence at the last act of the movie, I think the fact that it is a little bit more, for lack of a better term, realistic, makes it funnier. There's nothing in Home Alone 2 in terms of the slapstick gags that make me laugh harder than Joe Pesci getting shot in the dick with the BB gun. Anyone who says Home Alone 2 is better than Home Alone 1, I'm sorry, you're just lying to yourself. Well, this is kind of embarrassing, so I'm editing my video and I'm like, wait a minute. I forgot to talk about Klaus, the animated Netflix Christmas movie that came out in 2019. The fact that I forgot about the movie is kind of an indication of how I feel about the movie. Klaus is fine, beautifully animated. I love the look of the movie. And I think the concept behind the movie is original and fun. However, in terms of the humor, in terms of how the story plays out, it was very much a kid's Christmas movie. It's fine. There's nothing about it that is outstanding or amazing. Klaus is a movie that's not quite just for kids. Like, I can see adults enjoying the movie, but for whatever reason, the movie just never got to the level of, oh, I love this movie and I'm gonna watch it every year for Christmas. Like, I'm like, it's fine. I think what pulled me out of the movie is that there were some very questionable music choices. There were some needle drops in the movie that felt out of left field, and there's one segment in particular towards the end of the movie where it's like an emotional sequence and they're playing some teeny bop bullshit.
If happy lives a mile away, a couple steps is all it takes.
That was nauseating and was making my ears bleed. I'm very picky about music, and bad music in a good movie can make me enjoy that movie even less. But I think the movie's fine. It's a movie that got really great reviews from everybody, and people are trying to deem it a modern Christmas classic. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. But I will probably never watch it again. And then from there, we go to what I think is the greatest Christmas comedy film ever, Christmas Vacation. Christmas Vacation is the movie that I've seen the most in my lifetime, because my family has been watching this movie annually ever since it first came out in 1989. They have not missed a year. And I was born in 95, and I don't remember a time where this movie wasn't in my life. And you know what? Thank God for it too, because it brings me so much joy. It is, even if I'm having sometimes I'll get very depressed during the holidays. This year I'm actually doing quite well. But it's a movie where even if I'm feeling down and I'm not feeling very Christmassy, every time I put it on, it lifts me out of that funk. If not for a temporary amount of time, but it always makes me feel better. On top of that, it has some of the funniest lines, funniest moments.
Hey kids, look, a deer! Where do you think you're gonna put a tree that big? Bend over and I'll show you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Kiss my ass. Kiss his ass. Kiss your ass. Happy Hanukkah.
You surprised?
Surprised, Eddie? If I woke up tomorrow with my head sewn to the carpet, I wouldn't be more surprised than I am right now.
And I go back and forth quite often. I'm like, what do I like better, the first Vacation or Christmas Vacation? Because I love Vacation 1 a lot. But I think I have the softer spot for Christmas Vacation. And it is the most perfect Christmas comedy movie. It is the perfect amount of over-the-top insanity mixed with relatability. Everybody can relate to the holidays being chaotic and hellish and the family being a bit too overbearing. Even if we love them, it can be a bit crazy. We relate to the fact that Clark is doing everything he can to create good old traditional family Christmas, and him failing at it, but him kind of coming to terms with it at the end. And, you know, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. It makes me laugh out loud every time. My favorite line of the movie is probably,
Hey, kids. I heard on the news that an airline pilot spotted Santa's sled on its way in from New York.
You serious, Clark?
last, but certainly not least, is Gremlins. I fucking love Gremlins. I love it. The film celebrated its 40th anniversary this year. And like I mentioned earlier in this video, it was written by the same guy who directed Home Alone and wrote Christmas with the Kranks. That's crazy. But Gremlins is essentially a perfect comedic monster movie. It is beautifully written. It has an amazing balance of comedy and tension, and there's some great, genuinely creepy moments, and then Looney Tune absurdism, which we know Joe Dante is a big fan of Looney Tunes. It's a movie that is super Christmassy. Gremlins gets mentioned for a lot of things. It gets mentioned for kind of starting this trend of little monsters. There was a ton of movies and television shows that came out after Gremlins that were clearly trying to emulate Gremlins. Most people like it. It is a classic movie, but I feel like the fact that it takes place during Christmas, that doesn't get mentioned enough. It's like, this is without a doubt a Christmas movie, without a doubt. I mean, the opening alone, it's the entire climax of the film takes place during Christmas Eve. And as somebody who loves a good alternative Christmas movie, it is one of the best. It's in the top 5 greatest alt Christmas movies, right up there with Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, Batman Returns. It's up there with the greats. And it's just wonderful. I just go crazy for these gooey, goopy, boogery, creepy looking gremlin things. And who doesn't love Gizmo? It's truly one of the great Christmas movies for the weirdos out there such as myself. So anyway, guys, those are the Christmas movies that I watched for this month. I think this will probably be my last video of the year. So, I'll see you guys next year where I'll talk about a bunch of different movies, and a big thank you to everybody who has liked and subscribed to me this year. I really started making videos in May, and the amount of likes and comments and subscribers I've gotten has been really beyond my expectations. So a big thank you to everybody who's subscribed to this channel. Really means a lot to me. And of course, I want to hear your thoughts on these movies, what your takes are, and what movies you watched this month. Mention them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and Merry Christmas.